Hello Aquarius, welcome to Monarch Intuition, and today I'm going to be doing your personality assessment through the tarot cards. We have a lot to discuss right here because Aquarius is actually a very, very powerful sign. So, what we're going to talk about first is this Five of Swords leading up to the King of Swords. So the Five of Swords is your base Aquarian energy, which is your egotistical self. And then you have the King of Swords, which is your highest self once you've had like your ego death within your life. So when we look at this Five of Swords right here, what this represents is kind of like winning an argument at all cost, all right? So we have these two people in the background. They're walking away and they've dropped their swords. And we have this one person holding two different swords right here, well, three different swords, representing that he's gained control over a competition. He's forced other people to walk away. He's right in a situation. So as opposed to your polarity, your opposite polarity, which is Leo energy, Leo energy represents an actual physical conflict. Five of Swords represents a mental conflict, so verbal disputes between people. Aquarians tend to be very well-learned, well-rounded individuals as they get older, but when they are younger, they can come off as very sharp, cold, and calculated people. So when I talk about that, it's someone who doesn't care about the emotions of others. Aquarians tend to not be very emotional people. It's funny because you're represented as the humanitarian of the signs, represented by the Magician and the Star. We'll talk about that in a second. So with this Five of Swords energy, it's wanting to be right at all costs, wanting to study, wanting to know the facts of a situation, and wanting to present your facts in a very logical, debate, argumentative manner. Not really worried or concerned about people's emotional state. And, as someone who is a Leo myself, I'm not really concerned about the emotional state as well. It's all about what are the facts. And that's why I tend to get along with Aquarius, even though you're my opposite sign. It's that I prefer to know what are the facts as well. I don't really care about the emotional aspects of how people feel in a situation. I need to know what is true and what is false. Some people, no matter what, no matter how you try to talk to them, no matter what you present to them, are still going to go off of emotions, all right? They're not going to go off of, logic and discernment, okay? So this is kind of like casting pearls before swine, if that makes sense. People just don't want to listen to you. So with this Six of Swords, this is you deciding to move away from conflict, that argumentative conflict, Aquarius, and wanting to just be more focused on yourself. And then this is one of the hardest parts of Aquarius, is wanting to be a shut-in. Shut yourself off from humanity because you view them as very stupid people. All right? When you view people as being very stupid, it's very easy to become a reclusive person. And that's kind of what the Six of Swords represents. There's a battle raging in the background of this card, and these people are sailing slowly across the water to new horizons, a new solid foundation for themselves. And that's kind of what I'm seeing for you, Aquarius, is that you finally give up on trying to debate these people because they're not worth your time, and you finally just move towards something that's more calm for you. Now, let's look at this Seven of Swords energy. This Seven of Swords is very important to you because it represents doing something on the sly and getting away with it. Now, some people consider the Seven of Swords as thief energy. I don't consider Aquarians as thieves. What I view this card as is someone who can do something under the guise of night. Someone who can do something and no one's paying attention to you. And that's the good thing about Aquarians, is that you could be doing something right in someone's face, but they're not going to be paying attention to what you're doing. In fact, you could get away with a lot of things within your life. You can create something under what's the word? Like if you write something, a ghostwriter. You could write it under like a ghostwriting name and just live your normal everyday life around your friends, but you could be a multimillionaire. Like you do stuff like on the intellectual level, and it allows you to get away with certain things, and people might not know. And Aquarians tend to be very secretive people. When we look at your highest self, this King of Swords energy, this is someone who is not very in touch with his emotions, but he understands that they are important, okay? Because when we look at the Magician energy and the Star, what you have to understand is that the Magician are represented as the Magi. And what did the Magi do in the Bible? Well, they followed the star. The star was a representation of Jesus, right? The Magi were very, very learned people. They could study astrology. They studied medicine. They studied, mathematical equations and physics and whatever. They wanted to see the inner workings of the universe. They wanted to be master astrologers, and that's kind of what you rule, Aquarius, is you rule the concept of astrology. You rule the concept of geometry. So when we look at the star energy, this is mapping people's astrological charts. And that was something that was very hard to do because they had to calculate backwards during this time period. They didn't have a calculator to do it. They didn't have, cafe astrology, just type in your birth chart and, it'd come up, the longitude and latitude thing. They had to do it. So what you have to understand right here, Aquarius, is that some people cannot be as smart as you, okay? Some people are never going to have the same ambitions of how the universe works. They're going to focus more on the emotional side of things. Some people only want to focus on love within their life, Aquarius. Some people don't ever want to move away from that. But you do. And that is why you're considered the humanitarian or the age of Aquarius. Because Aquarians, they might not care about the emotional state of other people, but the inventions that they create help propel humanity hundreds of years into the future. For example, 100 years ago, people were still doing bloodletting and still doing, all kinds of lobotomy procedures. Nowadays, we look back on it because we have all this medical knowledge and all of this scientific advancement. We're like, that's crazy. That's the age of Aquarius, though. 40 years ago, there was no concept of a cell phone. 50 years ago, there was no concept of X, Y, and Z, right? And that's what the magician and the star represents, is studying situations and gaining in-depth knowledge and in-depth clarity. So when we look at the star, it's represented by 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 8 stars representing the concept of infinity, which is on the strength card. There is an infinite symbol on the angel of strength, which is your opposite energy, because that's represented by Leo. So what you're trying to find out within your life is, how can this world be eternal? How can the universe be eternal? What is the concept of the universe? What is the concept of physics? And every single thing along the way that you help create and how you help move humanity forward helps you move towards the concept of what is infinity. Because that's what the magician represents. He represents the number 1. The previous number is 0. The full energy from 0 to 1. So the concept of the Big Bang, or the concept of, let there be light in creationism. That's what you're more focused on within your life. And if you focus more on that, just, not give your energy to people who are never going to understand things. But that might actually help drive you. But understand, are you doing it to prove those people wrong? Or are you doing it for the right reasons, for your own benefit? That's what you need to do, Aquarius, is you need to stop looking at other people and trying to prove them wrong and saying, well, I'm just going to be better than you, and I'm going to prove how stupid you are because I'm going to be a multimillionaire and I'm going to make all these inventions. It's like, why don't you just do it for yourself? Why are you so focused on this 5 of Swords energy? Those people have always existed in the world, okay? And that's what you have to understand. History just repeats itself. Those people who just want to focus on being in La La Land and not focused on anything, in reality, they've always existed. They're not new concepts, Aquarius. And that's what you need to understand for yourself, all right? So focus on you. Do your own thing. You're a masculine sign. Aquarius tends to be a very self-serving sign. It's all about, put the oxygen mask on yourself before serving other people or before helping another passenger. When we look at the magician energy, it's being a master of whatever you choose to do within your life. There are 4 objects representing wand, cup, pentacle, and sword. And then he also has the representation of infinity above his head, the sideways 8, which is a representation of the 8 stars right here. So what do you want to do, Aquarius, within your life? And it's also important to understand that each one of these stars sides is represented by these number 8 as well. So what do you want to do, Aquarius? You have the whole universe at your fingertips. You have the whole grand spectrum of earthly knowledge available to you. How are you going to move yourself forward, and how are you going to propel humanity? Don't think of it as trying to get one over on the competition. That's what the 5 of Swords is about. Don't think about trying to prove those people wrong, because those people will exist in the past, the present, and the future. Some people will just want to live in La La Land. But understand that there are 2 sayings: ignorance is bliss and much learning doth make one mad. All right? Don't make yourself mad. Don't drive yourself, and I'm not even talking about being crazy, but don't make yourself like angry about a situation. I know much learning doth make one mad means it makes them psychologically unstable, but don't make yourself angry over these people, okay? Don't try to force your ideologies onto them when it doesn't matter. Focus on you. All this time you spend arguing, all this time you try to spend proving your point, all this time you spend trying to make sure that the other people are wrong, you could have spent it on something more constructive and proven it in the end. That's the whole point of like mathematics, is proving the equation. Think of like if you spent all this time arguing on mathematics, right? And then you decided at the end, well, I'm going to show you on a mathematical equation, and I'm going to prove that equation to you why you're wrong. Once you're the magician energy, people will have more respect for you. People will see you as a very knowledgeable person, a very learned, scholarly individual. And that's why the magicians were so important, because when they spoke, people listened to them. Okay? Because they were people who went to the magical colleges. And yes, there were colleges of magic. They taught divination, they taught astrology, they taught basic archaic anatomy and, you know, basic surgeries and things of that nature. Like, college was all about, you know, the mathematical origins of time and space. And the magical origins of, like, you know, the concept of reality. So when we look at this energy, it's bringing from the knowledge right here, because you pull from the energy of Scorpio. So Scorpios can go in depth into the water, but you can go way up into the sky to see things from a higher perspective. So that's the concept of, you know, pulling from this water right here with one jug and then pouring the water onto the land. You're pulling water from your own consciousness, your own thoughts and your ideologies, because Aquarians are kind of like, I hate to say it, it's not a read, but you're kind of like out there, you're fucking cuckoo, right? You have the weirdest concepts, and I think it's really cool, because the way that you can explain it, it makes sense. Like, it's not just, you know, fairy tales and magic dust, it's like, but I can prove to you why this is real. Like, if I was to talk to you on, like, an intellectual level, you could say, this could be a real reality thing, and, you know, it could change the world. But you can pull from this, you know, pool of knowledge and water the earth with it. And that's the concept of Aquarius. Pulling from your mind this out there ideas and these out there concepts and structures, but you have to study the in-depth reality. Some people just look on their cell phones and they scroll through Facebook and they're like, that's fine for them. They just take pictures and post them on Instagram, you know, whatever. But other people had to invent those things. There will always be the inventor and there will always be the consumer. And Aquarius, you are the inventor. So don't let anyone ever overshadow your inventions and ever tell you that something cannot be done, okay? Because if there is a will, there is a way. 100, 200 years ago, 300 years ago, they would have been like, what's a cell phone? There is no such thing as that. They didn't have the concept of that. They didn't have the concept of, you know, germs. So remember, a lot of scientists were considered mad, and the church wanted to execute them for heresy. It's okay to allow people to call you crazy, and it's okay to allow people to call you like a mad, insane person and whatever, because at the end, those people were right. And they're, you know, praised around the world and respected for their contributions to science. So don't waste your time on the naysayers. The end, Aquarius. So I hope you enjoyed this reading, and I'll talk to you later.